Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1980s. This is episode 240, recorded August 23rd, 2023.
Gruesome Magazine.
One down, 50 to go.
Wow.
That's the reverse Cool Hand Luke, huh? I am your host, Jeff Mohr. This podcast is about horror films released between 1980 and 1989. Each episode, my co-host, Bill Mulligan, Crystal Cleveland, Chad Hunt, and I will tackle another classic or not so classic film from this radical, gory, influential, and gruesome decade. Unfortunately, Crystal could not be with us tonight. This is exactly the kind of movie I'd love to hear what she has to say about.
That's why I picked it.
So we're going to have to go. You know, some of us have families and we have stuff to
Lives. Do. Yeah.
Lives.
But
luckily
you got us.
She'll be back. And I did ask. I asked around the Gruesome Magazine offices, and for some reason I couldn't find any takers to jump in.
Luther the Geek did not bring them running.
I know.
I'm perplexed by that.
Me too. But joining us is Chad Hunt, comic book artist, co-host of Decades of Horror, the classic era, and the 1970s. How you doing, Chad?
I'm good. Haven't bitten any heads off any chickens lately.
Egg didn't bother you at all. Everything was smoothly.
It's been a while, so
it's a little sore.
It's just, I got to get back in the swing of it.
Okay. The swing. And last but not least, it's Bill Mulligan, writer, director, special effects guru, co-host of Decades of Horror, the 1970s, and a published author. How you doing, Bill?
Doing fine. I just had a signing at the local library. They had a little mini con, and it was great. I got to see a lot of former students and co-workers and stuff came and felt I guilted them into buying a book. So next stop, Dragon Con.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Look at all the stuff you put me through.
They want to see if I put them in the book, if they recognize any characters.
That would have been my pitch.
Yeah. Only one way to find out.
You'll want to read this and see if you're in here.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Decades of Horror and Gruesome Magazine are partnering with Play Now Media on several of their streaming channels. In particular, Decades of Horror of the 1980s is on the Wicked Horror TV channel. So check us out there. Lots of good stuff there. I watched, what did I watch there? Ghost Watch a couple of days ago.
Oh, yeah.
The
BBC.
Oh, yeah.
BBC
right.
sort of found footage type thing that I think was filmed live, I believe.
Yeah, ahead of its time.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah, that was on Wicked Horror TV, and along with lots of other stuff. So check those out, and check us out. Of course, you can always find us on our Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel and on your friendly neighborhood audio podcast app. So on this podcast, we usually start with a few details about the film we're covering, followed by our first impressions, some taglines, and then we move on to a general discussion of whatever sort of interests us or trips our trigger. So our film, and if you haven't seen that film, you probably wondered just exactly what was up with our intro. The film was Luther the Geek, 1989, directed by Carlton J. Albright, written by Carlton J. Albright, but credited as Whitey Styles.
That would be my AKA, I think. If I
know it's kind of
Whitey. My first go-to. Whitey something. Yeah.
I'll be Blackie somebody then.
Boston Blackie.
There we go. Cast includes Edward Terry, Joan Roth, Stacy Heidick, Thomas Mills, and Jerry Clark. production company was Albright Platt Films. It was filmed in New York for the parole board scene at the very beginning. And I don't know, the IMDb says Iowa, but they did say something about having, thanks for the support of the University of Iowa Film Foundation Board or something like that.
That's where they found all the freaks.
Well, that could be, or maybe all the chickens. But it looked, I've discovered this in watching movies. You can find a spot that looks like almost any other state in almost any other state.
Sure.
Yeah.
Almost, except for Rocky Mountains is hard to find in another state. But where was I?
Filming,
but also Sterling, Illinois. That was kind of one of the main places. Took 25 days or 5 weeks to film it. It was limited release on July 1st, 1989. There's lots of AKAs. The Freak, I think, was working title. Also The Geek. And in Mexico, Luther Mandibula Asesina, which meant Luther Killer Jaw.
And the Eagles also wrote a song called, based on this movie, The Geeks Don't Want No Freaks.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So there's that.
Okay.
I remember that song. This is literally the first time I've thought of that in decades. Thank you, Chad.
You're welcome.
I've never thought of it. The synopsis: a psychotic killer convicted of multiple murders is released on parole after spending 20 years in prison. His psychosis immediately takes over and he goes on a killing spree. Yes,
I'll say.
Does. And this little shot here on the side of the info card is the original Geek that
Dwayne.
He goes to Little Luther, gets his teeth knocked out when he goes to see him, and then tastes the blood.
And tastes
a mentor.
Apparently that was the end. So, if you get your teeth knocked out while you're watching a Geek, what you do is you put sharpened metal teeth in for dentures. Then spend the rest of your life trying to intimidate.
What other options do you have?
Imitate
don't
that.
have
I don't know. So before we get going, either one of you guys ever been to a geek show or a
No.
oddities midway show?
I have been to some oddities ones, although most of them were fake.
Yeah.
And the ones that weren't fake just made you feel bad about yourself. So.
Well, and even yeah. So I went to one of those, and all I remember is immediately thinking, I just got screwed. There's nothing here.
Yeah.
I
like the ones. I like the ones that are clever, where you got screwed, but at least you can laugh about it. Where they're like a horse with his head where his tail should be, and you're like, wow, what would that even look like? And it's just a horse with his tail tied up to the post. Like
or a man-eating chicken. You could walk through and there's a guy with a bucket of KFC.
There was one, the cherry-colored cat, and it was just a black cat, black cherries. Yeah, like, okay, all right, that was worth $1.
Anyway,
plenty of those.
It is now time for first impressions, and this is Chad's pick.
Yeah, Chad.
So,
I'm sorry.
What's up, Chad?
Nothing. I first read about this movie in Fangoria. I saw a couple of stills from it. It was either in the upcoming movies section or something. But I was. This was at a time where serial killers, they all needed a gimmick. Freddy had his glove, and Michael Myers had the knife, and Jason had the machete, and so Luther's gimmick was a metal teeth. And by this time, I was sick of gimmicks in horror films and particularly slasher films. I hate generic just slasher movies. I can't. I don't. Not my bag. So I eventually saw this on the shelves in the rental blockbusters and stuff like that, and I was just like, yeah, I'll watch Bad Taste again by Peter Jackson, or something like that. And I never ever got around to watching it. And so I think it popped up on Tubi, and it was the 80s. And so I said, hey, what the hell? If it's bad, I'll subject everybody else to it. And if it's great, I'll take all the credit.
And indeed you did.
And so that's, I watched it, and it's exactly what I thought it might be. It's not that great of a movie. The characters are just terrible. Luther is confusing and confounding as any slasher has ever been in any genre. He tries to get away in the car, and it seems like all he did was drive out to kick the one guy in the ribs and get back in the car and drive back to the house. Just stupid stuff, and not very well put together. It's one of those that I think with a better written script and a better story behind it, the idea is kind of interesting. But I think a lot more could have been done with it than just turning it into a home invasion / generic slasher kind of a movie. So it was okay. I don't hate it or anything like that. The gore was really good. It's just nah. After seeing so many other slashers and so many other killer guy with this and that and this and that, it's just standing at the back of the line of those for me.
Okay. All righty. What about you, Bill Mulligan?
What about me? Well,
have you seen this before?
No, I first saw this a couple days ago. So I'm not a big trauma fan. It's not my thing, trauma films. And I realize not all trauma films are trauma films. There's some that they just distributed. There's some that they actually produced. I just think of all the various horror studios, the good to bad ratio for trauma is usually not that great. I'm just not into the parody stuff. So right off the bat, I had really low expectations. And I'll say this, it was better than my expectations. It was better than I thought it had it was going to be. There are parts of it that are pretty poor. But there are also parts that are kind of well done. It's reasonably well shot, although a little inconsistent. There's no storyline. It's really the bare bone threads of a storyline, and the acting is kind of out there. I liked Luther. I like the actor who played him because he really looks genuinely nuts and creepy. The metal teeth. I mean, none of it makes sense. Almost the second scene where they're arguing about whether or not to give this guy parole. It just feels like it was tacked in there to explain why he's free, because they're like, he's been a model prisoner, except for the part about only talking like a chicken, keeping his murderous metal teeth, and clearly being an absolute psychopath. Yeah, a great candidate for parole. This guy, he's barely out before he's murdering people for no reason. So I don't know if this film was meant to be an indictment of the justice system or what, but there are parts of it that I was just shaking my head. The director does not know how to direct crowds. It's everybody just saying the same thing over and over again because they were given one line. Just everybody say the geek, the geek. Why are we say, shut up, just go in there and say that until you stop. Or weak, but then there are some parts that are reasonably well done. The gore is pretty good. It's just, you know what? I was kind of disappointed. I was expecting something really offensive because this seems like a very politically incorrect. I mean, we do not call people like that geeks anymore. We call them, I don't know what the proper politically correct term for geeks anymore is.
Chicken head chopping.
Chicken aficionados.
I'm not sure that it's even anyway.
And, I still call them geeks.
There you go. Yeah,
now,
what are they going to?
Now that's what they call computer.
They're going to write a letter to their congressman. They're illiterate,
It used to refer to people that bit the heads off a chicken and drank their blood. Now it refers to computer nerds.
Yeah, the only thing I knew about geeks was like, I think I remember Harlan Ellison wrote something about going to a car, being in jail with a circus geek, and just how dehumanizing and terrible it was. They would find the lowest alcoholic they could find and just promise him all the booze he could drink if he would just crap all over himself, bite the heads off of chickens, and just show the locals a life even more sad and desperate than their own. And it's like, wow, this is just the saddest thing ever. So to make a villain out of that, yeah, that takes a certain amount of balls. But there's just not a lot of there. You know, it's already receding from my memory, trying to remember things to say about it. So I don't know. It's not the worst movie we've done at all.
It's run of the mill.
It's, you know, we watch some films that are great, and we watch some films that are so terrible they're compelling. But the hardest ones to really talk about are the ones that are just sort of there. They're not bad enough to be fun. Yeah. They're not good enough to be good.
You felt like it could be a great character, but
yeah,
you just didn't know anything about him. You didn't know what made him tick. You didn't know.
No,
we had no, and of course he only speaks in chicken things. And again, I think the actor kind of made that work as well as it could work. But this isn't a character that's going to get a sequel. Well, obviously, yeah. But even if, you know, there just wasn't enough there, and they did not bring enough story to the table to make us care about the characters that he's threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
well, this is a case where I'd seen this a few years ago and thought it was, you know, just a bunch of trivial dreck. But for some reason this time around, I kind of liked it. And I don't know if it's because I've watched a lot more worse films since then, but I kind of enjoyed the whole, I got kind of a kick out of the whole chicken thing. I mean, the opening scene where the one parole board member keeps talking about how he's a model prisoner, but, you know, somehow or another, they can't get it through to her that he killed 3 people by ripping their throats out, you know, with his teeth. No, but they parole the guy, and he immediately goes on a killing spree. And apparently he's been killing people since he was a little kid, because when they're showing his record pop up on the screen, it's got juvenile court, you know, 2 to 3 years to juvenile delinquent school or boys school or something. Anyway, I was kind of impressed with the effects, actually, the gore effects, of what they did on him. For a movie like this, I was impressed with that. And I was impressed with the guy, Edward Terry, that played him. We'll talk a little bit about the cast a little bit later, but it's crazy. It's just crazy. So, yeah, there's a lot. They do a lot of stupid stuff. There's just a lot of running back and forth, and they try to find reasons to justify what's going on, but we don't know why it's just weird, you know, like he steals that guy's motorcycle. And then knocks him out. What does the guy does he take the car after him? I can't remember. Yeah. He takes the car after him.
He kicks him in the ribs.
And then instead of finishing him off, he jumps in the car and drives back.
When they made you think he was trying to escape, like he was trying to get away, because he stole the motorcycle, then he stole the car, like he's trying to get away, and then
the cop that comes to warn him that there's a maniac on the loose, he leaves, but then he decides, you know, that girl was pretty cute. I should have went in and had some coffee with her, you know, apparently, because he just comes back for that cup of coffee, and it's a different woman. The situation's entirely different, you know. So anyway, but for some reason, I had a certain amount of affection for it in some of the ways they laid out the scenes.
Mhm.
They could talk a little bit about that. And the ending, I did not expect that ending, and I just started laughing my ass
Yeah,
off. I
yeah.
thought it was great. Anyway, that's all. So I'm not going to tell anybody to watch it, but I had fun with it, and maybe even just a hair more fun because we had reviewed The Children before, so
Oh yeah.
we can get into that too. But first, it's time for I can't stop it.
Uh-oh.
Taglines with Chad.
Well, a movie this good has got to have some great classic taglines.
It actually does. I've never met a tagline I didn't like, I guess.
Chad
I swear you're making some of them. You're writing some of these yourself and sticking them in there. All right. Your taglines for Luther the Geek are a movie with a foul bite.
Oof.
I don't even know. What the heck does that mean?
Someone's dad wrote that one.
Have you guys ever been kicked in the nuts? That's what that felt like reading that.
A foul bite. It doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah.
All right. Now, for the next bold statement, tagline, the most riveting splatter film since the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Bold
Riveting
statement.
may not be the best
Bold
word.
claim.
Yeah.
The burning bed hat was more riveting.
It does splatter. There's some splatter.
More than Texas Chainsaw Massacre does. That movie's almost got no blood.
Okay. The most disturbing white trash killer since Leatherface.
They really wanted to get some of that sweet Texas Chainsaw Massacre swag going there.
I think Rob Zombie wrote these. You write us some cool taglines and we'll give you the next remake.
Yeah, and that's been taglines with Chad.
Boy, that's a handsome devil.
Yeah. Taking one for the team.
Just the way it goes. So let's get into the meat here a little bit, so to speak.
So to speak.
White meat or dark?
Well, good luck finding any genuine theatrical posters.
Did this play anywhere?
That's the
These
VHS or the DVD cover.
Yeah,
it's a trauma, and that has the foul bite line on it.
Yep.
I think Trauma picked this up for distribution. I don't think it was originally made by Trauma. I don't believe. But
No, I think you're right.
And that was true for the children as well, I think. But it fits right in with their style. I think if it had been a true Trauma production, they would have ramped up the humor a bit. I don't even understand the premise here. The geeks were just like really disheveled, alcoholic, wretched refuse people who would bite the heads off a chicken because they were hungry and they were given a chicken to eat raw, and you can't eat a living chicken, so of course you bite its head off. It wasn't
as payment to get
to get some food. It wasn't that they thought they were chickens. They didn't sit around clucking and stuff. So
he was clearly traumatized at a young age by what he saw.
He got his teeth knocked out. I was traumatized watching that.
But then the blow to the head probably didn't help him.
Yeah.
Right. All right, and then this I think, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it might be a foreign like DVD cover or something.
See, that's trying to trick you into thinking it's some kind of art film.
Yeah.
And then
that vampire's got steel teeth.
Yeah.
It's Jaws from James Bond.
What's the first time we see Luther as an adult? he's filing his teeth.
Eesh.
Yeah.
Sharpening them. Well, then I pulled this one up too, Bill. This is like, I
cool.
believe this is the Vinegar Syndrome
Nice.
Blu-ray cover, but I'm not entirely
That's
sure.
the worst chicken ever drawn. It looks like the chicken's beak is actually his tongue. It looks like he's Luther the chicken.
Yeah, it's like his crest is falling down over his mouth. That's that is a really subpar.
Give us a kiss. Well, anyway, so them's the posters. Now, it's interesting to me that did you recognize the one guy on the parole board?
No.
You got a picture of him?
I don't. Gil Rogers, the one that was yelling at him about, you can't let this maniac out.
Yeah, the voice of reason. Yeah.
Yeah, he played the sheriff in The Children. He was like the lead male character.
Was that
9 years before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, in point of fact, he was right, but no, some bleeding heart liberal says we got to let this chomp, this clearly insane person. I mean, I just would have appreciated the one reason why they would let this person go. Anyway.
He's only killed 3 people since he's been inside.
Yeah. And the way they just blow off is like, what about the people he killed? What about their rights? And they're like, are you going to bring that up every time? I mean, he got outvoted.
He's been a model prisoner. Yes. Because apparently he's been clucking the whole time he's been in prison.
Right. Yeah. He hasn't caused any trouble. And
I'm
you know
not sure
what?
What's model about that?
He supplied the prison with eggs. I mean, he's been a big help. We're almost sorry to see him go. But we got to make room for some more kids who are selling weed. So we got to let some of these people out,
There's no more room for these murderers. All these kids that are
come on. Jeez.
Yeah, because he has a very small bit part in this movie, but he is in this Gil Rogers. So I just found a quick picture.
He's swinging for the rafters, though, in his scene. He's making the most. There we go.
Oh, okay.
So that's him in The Children, and then in this one, he's all white-haired.
That's the same expression. You make me sick.
Mm-hmm. He's got he actually had a career, not a leading role type of career, but then let's look at Edward Terry. I mean, this is the guy.
He's really well cast in the role, and I read in the workflowy that they kept trying to hide the fact that he's a pretty short guy. Who cares? That's all the better.
I never once thought he was short, so apparently they did a good job.
Yeah, I guess. But I never really
and by short, I don't know, 5'7". I don't know.
It's better that he's short. I mean,
right.
He's more terrifying, I think, because he's short and not as imposing.
He's not scary because he's 7 foot tall and everything. He's scary because he's got that maniacal expression.
Oh,
he really plays crazy well. That bottom shot, I should have done a close up of that because he knows how to ramp up the crazy to 11.
So he too was in The Children.
Mm-hmm. I remember
that was his only other credit in IMDb.
Yeah, and this director only did this.
What was the actor that played that was in The Thing that was his twin brother? Is it Maloney?
His twin brother, Bennings?
No, in The Children, there was these two guys that looked the same, Edward Terry, and the other guy was the guy with the hand in The Thing.
Yeah.
You remember?
Oh, yes. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Right.
The hand in The Thing.
He was the guy in The Thing with I think was it Bennings?
He's out in the cold and his hands.
Yeah.
Bennings. Yeah.
Bleeped up.
He does look like Bennings.
Great scene.
Well, he and the actor that plays him in The Thing were both in The Children. They were those twin brothers. Remember they had that conversation.
Oh, that's right.
About
That's
hair.
right. That's right.
Look at her hair. They were standing out drinking booze out of the corner, sitting on the car or on their truck.
So it's a little surprising that he did so little, because I think he was good in both this film and in The Children.
Yeah, you never know what else he's doing. He might have,
right?
And I feel like they thought they might have had a franchise on their hands here as well.
Oh, he could have been thinking that way. Peter
They would have had to
Maloney.
come up with a story, though.
Peter Maloney.
Luther in space.
Luther in the Hood.
They were Hank and Frank and the children.
Hank and Frank.
I remember now.
Yeah.
But this guy, the looks on his face, the chicken acting and stuff. It was.
He was really putting those chickens' heads in his mouth.
Yep.
Yeah. That time there's that one scene where he's putting it in his mouth, and then something distracts him, and he stops and he's looking. Then he waits, but that's some nasty effects here. So I thought he was.
Nothing's as nasty as the fact that he probably actually put a real live chicken's head in its mouth, because chickens are dirty animals. And, probably tastes like chicken though.
So the mom is played by Joan Roth, and she also had a very 2 credits in IMDb. Mm-hmm. I thought she did fine. I mean, there was a couple of rough spots in her performance, but if those are the only things she did, and she's got a good look, I thought, she spends a big part of the movie tied up to the bed. And
stayed that way thanks to her daughter.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. We find out later she could have freed herself. Oh. But
God knows her daughter
she tears the cloth or something on the. Yeah. She's tied up with strips of sheets, which Luther goes through great elaboration to tie these, which I was really impressed with the knots he was tying. And no wonder they had a hard time trying to untie it. But then they discovered if you just pulled on the thread and tore it across, she could get away. She did it all on her own, but couldn't do the rest of it until her daughter brought a knife. So
finally,
I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some gaps in the
logic
there. I mean, I bought that they couldn't get it untied because the way the guy tied it I was impressed with that. But then we have Stacy Haiduk, who goes on to a very nice career.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys know her from?
Superboy.
Yes, she was Lana Lang.
She was Lana Lang in Superboy and a couple other movies I've seen her in. Great. She's a good actress. She's a great actress. She just wasn't. I don't feel like she was directed well here, or she and the script just gave her nothing. It really.
Well, it's like her first actual role, and she has a fairly long nude scene, even for slasher films of the time.
Yeah.
So
I liked her. I mean,
she was the only thing I had a problem with this character, not the actress in general, but when she's kneeling by her mom's bed and her mom's going, untie me, and she just sat there and cried about her boyfriend, and that just irritated me to no end. It
did me when she was apparently she went into shock from seeing her boyfriend's boots on the Geek. Right?
Yeah.
And just stood there in a trance for a while, which I don't know. I guess I've never been in that situation, so who knows?
I don't know, but I've been trying to untie my mother as quick as I could. No matter how trouble
but she's got, if all she had was a soap opera career, she'd have had a great career.
Mm.
She was on Days of Our Lives for 13 years.
380 episodes. Now, I didn't realize this. Maybe she just went back. I didn't split them up into the years. So that was from 2010 to now. But then she was in The Young and the Restless for 218 episodes from 2009 to 2016. So she was on them at the same time.
Yeah.
The Young and the Restless and Days of Our Lives. I didn't know.
I mean, that's possible. She sometimes these soap operas would actually have crossover characters. She may have even played the same character going from one soap to another. Or maybe it was when her character went off for whatever reason, and then would do some. Then she'd do a different character on a show. But yeah.
And then just before that, she had 53 episodes in All My Children.
Wow.
So
she's on Sequest, DSV.
Yeah. And yeah, the Superboy thing is, I think, probably the one she's most known for.
That's the first thing I've ever seen her in was that. So,
but heck yeah, she could go to any convention and you know. Also, she's done now. She seems to be doing quite a lot of voice work for Star Wars projects.
Right,
that's
right. There's some games and
X-Files.
Yeah, there's a lot of episodic TV too that she did parts in. So yeah. Few movies here and there. So anyway, I mean, I didn't have a problem with her. I mean, were these great acting performances? This is also the only film that Carlton Albright directed. He did not direct The Children. He wrote it. So I think we've watched his entire filmography on 80. The same for Edward Terry.
Yep. Yeah.
What in the world?
I mean, you're right. It's not a great performance, but what would be a great performance? Are you going to act your heart out? You know, in the scene where your boyfriend is spraying whipped cream on your boobs. I mean, how exactly do you stand out? How do you make that work? She was given nothing.
Right. Right. And you've got a couple of shots that you've got labeled as senseless violence. So
there you are.
That's the first thing he does when he gets out of prison.
I love the shot at the top, because they even said the woman who plays the old woman was actually a young woman in makeup. You think? It's like she's got a face with about as much wrinkles as a baby's bum. Why would they do that? Why not hire an older actress? Because this young lady looks like she's in her 20s, and they put really extreme old age makeup on her eyes and nowhere else.
Maybe they were afraid they wanted the scene to be violent enough that they didn't want to hurt.
I've worked with some older actresses who would eat this up with a spoon. You tell them, we're going to tear out your trachea and make you eat it. Oh, I'm all for it, dear. And
I've always wanted to do that in real life.
Yeah, that's on the bucket list. But no, they found a 12-year-old and put a wig on her and some unconvincing eye makeup.
So this isn't even he does, like when he chews out the hunter's neck, right? That they run into.
Yeah.
His top denture comes out and is stuck in the guy's neck.
Yeah.
And when he takes out the boyfriend, finally, we don't actually see it, but we see the aftermath.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and he's all chewed up.
Chest is shredded. His heart's on the outside, hanging there in his rib cage, and I was impressed with the effects on this kind of movie. Of course, I could find nothing regarding budget or.
It had great effects, great gore effects, I thought.
Yeah, for what there wasn't enough, but what there was effective.
Well, we had so we started off with the old woman on the bench where he's like, he's got chunks in his teeth and you see her neck all ripped open and blood's everywhere. Then we have the when he bites the head off the chicken in the barn, and that's not just, he doesn't just go chunk and there's blood. He like rips it out and there's a big long stretch of veins and sinew and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of.
That's another. Well, I grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
And we, when you cut the head off of a chicken, it doesn't go into the night quietly. It is flapping wings. It is kicking and jumping around, and it just doesn't stand there and take it like a man. It just, it just goes absolutely nuts. And so that's another thing. I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right. But That's just the farm boy in me,
Right.
I guess.
I've only ever cut the head off of one chicken. And it wasn't particularly animal friendly because it was a dull hatchet.
Oh, gee.
But I was ordered to do it by my mother-in-law, and I felt like I couldn't say no. Anyway,
Sounds like a good story there.
Anyway,
I've got a good story about cutting a chicken's head off if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the only time we're going to run across a recent.
Yeah. Hopefully this doesn't come up often in conversation.
Okay. Well, like I said, a chicken, when you behead a chicken, it just goes absolutely nuts. My brother and I it was the weekend, and we would usually slaughter a chicken and make a big pot and boil a chicken with rice, veggies, and stuff like that in a big, like a stew almost. Mm-hmm. And so we had the chicken we wanted, and we were holding it, and my brother was holding the chicken. I cut the chicken's head, and my brother throws the chicken. And of course the chicken starts flapping its wings. It starts flying, and it gets to a branch above a little bit, and the feet grab the branch and cling onto the branch. And it's shaking violently, and blood is raining down on both of us. Oh, wow. And I'm just looking at him like, well, what'd you do that for? And he had the weakest stomach of any kid I've ever seen. And I just look over at him, and he's just going, so that's my chicken beheading.
Okay, see, that scene right there is so much better than anything in Luther the Geek.
Maybe we'll make the sequel. You start right.
Yeah. Well, and for some reason, I don't know why, that by the time that I came around, the farm was not operational, but her mom was still living on the farm, which is just around the section from us. And she had a live chicken that she wanted to butcher. And for some reason, I don't know why she didn't want to do it. She had me kill it. Well, they had this board with 2 nails in it, and you put the head between the nails and pulled on it to stretch it out a little bit, and then chopped it with the hatchet, which isn't, I know, may sound gross, but go to a chicken processing plant sometime.
Oh no, that's the worst.
So, but yeah, then it flopped around. It didn't run or fly or anything, but it flopped around for a while.
See, I don't have any cool manly stories like that, but my wife
compared to that,
leave me a note saying I got to kill a wasp nest that apparently is in the window. So
that takes more bravery.
Take notes, Bill. Take notes.
Well, then we already mentioned the hunter, where he ripped out the hunter's neck and his upper denture sticks in it.
This hunter that just shoots anything that moves.
Well, he's got a deer strung up, and I don't know.
What did he think? That this was another deer? Maybe its mate coming back for revenge. So
I don't know.
He hears a rustling behind him. He's got to shoot first and find out what it was.
I'm killing everything.
Well, I didn't think. Anyway, that whole scene kind of confused me, because I thought it was sort of an accidental discharge that hit a branch above the boyfriend, but he flopped down on the ground. Yeah. He never had any blood or wounds or anything that I saw. I don't know. Anyway, but Luther didn't like that. So then there's
the scene show of hands who knew Luther would end up with the red boots at some point in the film.
Yeah,
when you first saw him.
Yeah, well, they made a point of showing those. Yeah. And I thought that was kind of cool. You know, we're shooting from under the bed, and we see him walking around out there, and see the red cowboy boots. There was a bunch of those. I'm going to show you this because we're going to see it later things, which I thought worked okay. You know, like we see his red boots, and we see him on Luther from the under the bed shot. I think showing him tie up when Luther's tying up the mom, I'm thinking, why are they showing him tie every knot? You know, well, it's because they were going to come back to that and show that it was hard for them to get it untied, I guess. There was a scene where when Luther runs out of the house and gets in the car and goes peeling off to go back and get the the boyfriend who isn't dead. But there was a nice shot there. There was an angular shot that went through the mudroom out the screen door, and he ran out. I don't know, for some reason I like that. You could just see the back corner of the car, and he runs around the car and gets in and then fires it up and it peels out. So there, I thought there was some attempts at some good stuff. There was also where, you know, how the mother or Luther's looking for the mother. She's hiding in the closet, and Luther's going through the clothes and stuff and finds her. Well, then later on, we've got the daughter doing that same thing. She's looking through the closet. And so I felt like that kind of built the tension a little more, because it already happened once. And then it was one of the, the equivalent of a cat scare where the boyfriend jumps up behind her to scare her instead of, anyway, then the Beth pukes out the blood on her mom's back and has some nasty contusions. And finally, he rips out the trooper's neck after the trooper drops the handcuffs. I'm like, first off, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it, but
Jeff's trying really, really hard.
to be principled or to say this is good.
This is where we need Crystal, because I just have this feeling Crystal would be like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I love this. This was great.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I didn't like is the whole hunt scene in the barn was way too long.
Yeah.
With the deputy walking around looking for Luther, and then we see shots of Luther looking down in shadow. And
it felt pretty padded.
Yeah, how many times do you have to show that? I don't know.
Yeah, and what cop would walk into a barn like that and not be looking up in the hayloft? Yeah. Well, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
This movie. This is one.
I'll
of
be
those
Crystal
movies.
from now on. From now on. I love this. I love that he didn't look up in the hayloft. It was great. I thought it was hilarious that he didn't look up in the hayloft.
And so this is our spoiler end at the very end where it's like, and the mom had like the worst luck of anything. It's like every time she turned around, she was getting knocked out. Luther throws her up against it. She hits her head on a 4x4 in the barn and lays her unconscious. And then finally, when Luther comes up to her, and he's obviously going to bite her neck out, I guess. And I don't know where the hell the rifle is, but she hasn't made any attempt to try to grab it before this. Just as he goes to grab her, she clucks.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was waiting for her to kick him or have the gun hidden at her side, pull it up and shoot him or something. I was not expecting her to go,
and he's so taken aback by it. The only one more surprised than Luther was me that they were actually going with this. And
then he starts strutting around like it's a baby.
Yeah, he's strutting around like the Red Rooster in the WWF, and he's killed Terry Taylor's gimmick and ended this movie. It's great. It was so weird. That is such a strange ending, and it's not clear if the mom has taken too many hits to the head that she's left crazy, because it sort of seems even after the threat is over, I think she's still kind of playing the role of a chicken.
Well,
I have no idea. It was weird. It was.
Yeah. Who knows?
I took it as her. She just was a little hysterical release where she was kind of laughing,
maybe,
and clucking at the same time.
That kind of love.
And then the rooster crowed.
Yeah. Well, it was dawn.
Yeah. This would be a great double feature with Death Laid an Egg, a giallo film.
Yeah.
You gotta watch. There's a villain who like talks like Donald Duck or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's New York Ripper.
Oh, New York Ripper. That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
This movie laid an egg.
Well, and then it sort of, and I know this is, I'm trying to say that the filmmakers put some thought into it, but it ends the way it started. It starts when he's a little boy, he gets his teeth knocked out, and he sees the geek rip the head off, and all the other men that are in the tent yelling are so grossed out they all leave. The little boy walks up to the stage, puts his finger in the blood, and tastes it. Well, the last scene for Luther in the movie is he takes his finger and wipes the blood off the bullet hole in his chest and tastes it.
Which would tell you that the kid was probably messed up before he ever was traumatized by the geek in the circus there.
Anyway. Yeah. So did we cover...
Yeah, we did.
Do you have anything else to say about this? So
I understand your points, Jeff. You can tell that they were trying to do. They were trying, but it ended up. Like I said earlier, it ended up just being run of the mill, and it had some really dumb decision making in the script and stuff that would probably never happen. I don't know. It was just this movie is a complete oddity to me. It belongs in a freak show itself. And that's not saying that I hated it, because I didn't really hate it. It's just there, and it's undefinably. I can't put my finger on it, but it's not great either. It's not good either, but it's not terrible. I just think they suffered from the lack of a good script, better dialogue. Maybe should have had somebody else write the script that had a little bit more, would put a little bit more into it. Because it does seem, a lot of it seems padded. A lot of it seems like there was so little there to work with that it became repetitive in some ways. And it's just there. I'll probably never watch it again. I mean, if I do, I'll probably, it won't be on purpose, But I do feel like you do. I do feel like there was some effort in there, some places to do things, to set up other things, but it wasn't enough to save it, I don't think.
Right. I mean, I would not warn people away from this movie. It wouldn't be one of those "do not watch this movie." I think in the right circumstance, maybe with the right people watching it and everything, you might get a kick out of it. But there's just not enough. There's not enough style to make up for the lack of story. And it's just one of those where what story there is requires the characters to be very dumb and make dumb decisions. And you're kind of yelling at the TV screen, why would you do that? It's like, well, because that's how we're going to pad out another 10 minutes of, limited sets, I guess.
Well, I that shot on the top, I was dying laughing when he was walking around with those sunglasses on and the tag hanging off him. I don't know. Yeah, it just looks stupider than shit. But it's hard.
Like D.B. Cooper.
It's hard to take a movie seriously when the lead villain is walking around going all the time. It's just
and he's not.
It was supposed to be a gimmick. It was supposed to.
Yeah.
It was. It was. I mean, it was.
Okay. If you get killed by Freddy Krueger, it's like, well, he is a demon from hell, and he's been doing this for a long time. Clearly enjoys his work. He's put a lot of thought into it and everything. I guess, I gave it my best shot and I went out like a boss. You get killed by Luther the Geek. You should feel bad about your choices in life.
Yeah, that brought you to that point.
Yeah. Right before the teeth chomp onto your neck is that, how did it come to this?
You're hanging out with your Hollywood buddies, and they're like, yeah, I got killed in Friday the 13th, Part 6. The best one of the franchise. And, Dream Warriors, I was killed. And how about you?
I made the cover of Fangoria.
Well,
yeah. I got killed by Luther the Geek.
Well, everywhere you look.
Sorry, what? Luther the Geek.
Everywhere you look, it says that the special effects person wanted their name removed from the movie, but it's on the version that we watched. and it's in IMDb. So it gives special effects is credited to William Purcell or Bill Purcell. And wow, I was looking at his stuff. He's got 108 credits. He was
but he only wanted 107 credits.
He was
special effects.
Good. Yeah, he's special effects coordinator for Scream, the 2022.
Oh, okay, nothing to be ashamed of.
Edition Black Phone, the Black Phone.
And hey, amazing. Listen. To his credit, he made that 9-year-old girl look as much like an old woman as could be possible. It's just
she wasn't a 9-year-old girl. Probably about a 30-year-old woman.
Maybe.
Maybe. But you go down through the list, and it's all movies you recognize. Hunger Games, he was a technician on that, and then before Luther the Geek, he did effects on Rambo: First Blood Part 2, Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan, as a technician, one of the effects guys. But
so it had good gore and effects.
Yeah.
Now the other person, Mike, let's see if this is. He's also done some things. I'm trying to see here.
The other guy, I think,
holy cow,
he's done a lot of prop guns and stuff, and he's been interviewed a lot with the shooting at the Alec Baldwin thing at Rust.
Yeah, Mike Tristano.
Yeah, he's gotten quoted a lot about how not to do something like this. Which is probably, if you don't want that to happen, hire someone like Mike Tristano.
He's got 526 credits as crew, and most of them, recent ones, are all master armorer.
Yeah,
weapons rental.
I got a feeling that job has just recently gotten a raise.
Yeah,
they're
big. Well,
one would hope.
Cut back on that.
56 credits in special effects. So this is one of those cases, where somebody between Stacy Haiduk and these special effects guys that really.
It may have been the name. Luther the Geek is such an offensive, and I'm as far from politically correct as possible, but when you hear that, you just have images of, oh my God, like freak shows don't even exist anymore. You can't do a geek show, and here we're making a movie about it. It's it just sounds really sleazy, and then you see the movie, it's like, no, that's
Well, 89, would that still have been a proper term to use?
I really think sideshows were so on the way out. I mean, I've been going to the state fair here for 27 years or so. And when I first went to the North Carolina State Fair, they already were talking about how the sideshows used to be a big part, but now they were kind of pushed away in the corner, and nobody really talked about them. And every year there was less and less,
Yeah.
And then there were no more human oddities at all. There was the world's smallest horse, I guess, maybe, who knows?
Oh,
they all got banking jobs.
Fetuses in a jar of two-headed animals and stuff like that. It's just, all right.
You can still see stuff like that. There's still traveling oddity shows that go around but not so much the what's I guess considered the freak side or the human side of things.
Well, I feel bad if you want to go ahead, Bill.
No, I said I feel bad for those folks because all these people put them out of business, and you're like, hey, thanks. Now I can go to work doing Shakespeare in the Park. It's like never going to happen. But,
well, that's actually the story of Nightmare Alley, which the original movie from 1947 with Tyrone Power.
Is
a great story of somebody starting kind of low in the carnival and building up and being a named performer, and then their fall over a period, and he ends up being a geek at the end. And so you really do kind of get to see what that is. Plus, that in Del Toro's version, I need to watch that again, but I almost like the original more. It's I don't know, it's dirtier. Del Toro adds more of a it's kind of a supernatural angle to it, but anyway, I need to rewatch that one because I usually like everything he does, and
Which one was that? Del
Nightmare
Toro?
Alley. Nightmare Alley.
Okay.
That came out like Christmas 2021.
Del Toro did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He
I'll have to
did the
check
whole
that
thing.
out.
Well, it wasn't, it's not billed as a horror movie, and I totally am blanking on who the leads are, but they're good leads. It's people that you would go see.
Yeah.
It's worth a watch, but I would also try to find the 47 version. I think is a really great movie, and Criterion put that out a couple of years ago too. All righty. Geeks. Well, I think that's it for this one, right, guys?
Yeah.
Well, guess what?
Well, speaking of geeks, you say some people wrote us letters?
We do. We have a bunch of them, and these are, I don't think they're in any particular order. Usually I try to put them in some order, but maybe they're reverse order. But first up, we've got 2 or 3 on two on the one we just went live, Dolls, episode 239. Ralph Miller, who was a special effects artist on that film, joined us. The first one's from Gregory Crosby. Anybody want to take that?
I'll take it. Okay, Gregory Crosby 3325 says, always a pleasure when Ralph Miller sits in for an episode. That is true.
Yes.
And I'd forgotten that Ed Naha, in addition to editing Fangoria, wrote screenplays as well. My instant association with Naha's name is yet another childhood touchstone. His 1975 encyclopedia, Horror from Screen to Scream. I had that too. I've forgotten all about that, which features his immortal entry on 1957's From Hell It Came and To Hell It Can Go. Yes, I read that. I read
That's
that
the
from
old
front
tree
to back
monster,
a million
right?
times. The tree monster, Tabanga.
The old tree
whatever
monster.
his name is.
Yep.
The old tree monster. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that memory back.
So we have one from Thunderhead Jones. That's reminds me that we didn't complete our promise. So we stuck the word gollywomps into the quote, saying we would explain what it was later, and we never did.
Oh well.
Any of you guys remember?
Nope.
What we were talking about? It's a quote from someone.
Well, I'm thinking it was that Ralph said that was like the harshest curse that he ever heard John Carl Buechler say.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's it.
That was when something went really bad. It was like,
or gollywampus.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. And Ralph, you can correct us if we got that wrong, if it was somebody else.
That Thunderhead Jones guy, I've heard of him before.
I have too.
He's a smart ass.
And then we have one from Chad White on Dolls. Chad, you want to take that?
Sure. I just recently watched this and was thinking this would be a great movie for you all to review. The stepmother is just as scary as I remembered she was when I was younger. I always thought the blonde looked familiar, but I could never place her until you all talked about it. It was the Take On Me video. That's awesome. Great movie. That eyeball scene has always stuck with me. Awesome show, everyone. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
You're welcome.
I still don't know. I got to go watch that video. And
oh wow, I love it.
We have one from Jerry Chandler as well.
Jerry Chandler's been on a tear lately. He writes, the 70s and 80s loved to play with the uncanny valley and horror. A lot of dolls, smooth-faced killer machines, several effective uses of mannequins, and, well, tourist trap before you learn the dark twist.
Mm-hmm.
It screws with people so well right from the get-go that I'm kind of amazed we haven't gotten more of it recently than we've seen in recent horror cinema. Yeah, it's time to bring back all those factories full of mannequins and stuff. Mannequins are just inherently creepy.
And Chuck.
Good call, Jerry.
Well, that's true, and I'm thinking, they're probably too busy trying to. They don't want to bring up the uncanny valley because you get it from CGI sometimes,
right? Yeah,
and only they don't want you to get it from CGI. They're trying to make you think it's Anyway, I don't know. That's my thoughts. All right. Those were on The Doll. Episode 237, The Nest. There's one from Lone Wolf. Chad?
Sure. Lone Wolf says, I've never seen The Nest before, but it sounds a lot like Mimic. That one creeped me out. I'll have to give this one a go. Mimic is a great film. One of Del Toro's earlier films.
Early and showed the promise that he had.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I gotta watch that one again. And then we have one on The Nest from Jerry Chandler. Bill, it must be your turn again.
It's my turn. I am the voice of Jerry. So I'm listening along as you started getting into the film itself and was rather confused by not knowing what you were talking about. That's the usual situation, not knowing what we're talking about. I was positive I'd seen it, but nothing you said sounded right. I spent a couple of days on and off looking stuff up and found out that I've spent the last decade plus thinking The Nest was the so-so okayish TV movie They Nest that I saw 20 plus years ago. Mm-hmm. Looking up The Nest, I realized I was somewhat in the same camp as Bill. The VHS covers never made me want to pick it up, and the word of mouth on it in most circles was that I was in for a long time, was largely non-existent. But you made it sound interesting. I'll have to track it down and watch it sometime after Dragon Con, which is about 10 days away as I write this. Wait, Bill wrote a book? Indeed I did. Thanks, Jerry. Any opportunity to shill this
self-promotion.
Shameless self-promotion.
That's what we're here for. All right. Now we move on to episode 236, Incubus, from Lone Wolf. Again, Chad, would you take this one?
Okay, Lone Wolf. If I got my demonology correct, both the incubus and succubus mate with their opposite genders to drain the victim's life force and sustain their own. They're basically sex vampires. Incubus is male, succubus is female, just like warlocks are male and witches are female. I've never watched Incubus, but I think I'll pass on it. Any film with rape just makes me feel as uneasy as Chad watching a Howling sequel. Ooh. Great episode, guys. There's Howling sequels because I refuse to believe they exist. Thanks.
Yeah, those are. I think everybody draws their line somewhere, so that's.
I draw mine after the very first Howling movie.
Yeah, good movie.
Yeah, and that was our point, Lone Wolf. The whole incubus male, succubus female, and then the outcome of this movie, who was the incubus.
It's like they're just making it up.
Yeah. Also on Incubus, Jerry Chandler, Bill.
I guess it's my turn. Jerry says, I like how Crystal stayed on the nicer side of Hollywood history when discussing body doubles and stars picking their preferred butt or breasts for a film. But come on, this ain't big budget, high-end studio stuff. Decades of Horror is largely covering lower budget horror and or exploitation. This is the genre where we keep hearing about actresses surprised as hell to see a set of bare breasts on the big screen at the premiere, that every bit her thinks belongs to her. Bill is correct about Roadhouse being science fiction. Thank you. It's a little known bit of movie trivia, but Roadhouse 1989 was the prequel origin story of Patrick Swayze's character Nomad from 1987's box office juggernaut Steel Dawn. It was originally going to be called Steel Dalton, but the studio changed the name in hopes that people would believe its post-World War III setting made it a sequel to 1984's Red Dawn. Fortunately, the creative people involved were able to tell their story of a small-town bouncer who would one day save another small town in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And
wow,
you can bet that all of this is true because you're reading it on the internet. See, that's the kind of hard-hitting
Jerry
stuff.
Said it.
Because Jerry said so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Appreciate that, Jerry. And I have got to go watch Roadhouse again because
what?
It is science fiction. I believe.
I apparently missed something altogether.
Alternate dimension at the very least.
Sam Elliott's mustache alone is it's Death Star equivalent there.
And it's got, I believe, if I'm not wrong, it also has in a small but good role the recently deceased there's a wrestler who just passed away, and I'm completely drawing a blank. Terry Funk. Left. Yeah. And he's good in it too. He should have been in more stuff.
All right, just a couple left, and I'm going to read.
I have a Terry Funk story too.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, they were wrestling here in town at the Lawrence Joel Coliseum in Winston-Salem, and he was wrestling that night. So, and we're walking back to the car after the match is over, and he pulls up in his car, and he goes, "Which way to the I can't remember which hotel it was, 4-Leaf Hotel," and I gave him completely wrong directions.
Oh,
and he went,
wow.
He goes, "Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it." And he took off and went left. I said, "Didn't I tell him to go right?" And I was so starstruck that Terry Funk was asking for directions. I gave him the wrong directions, and he went off into the right.
Man.
To the
30 minutes
wrong
later,
way.
when he's totally lost, he's like cursing your name. His mother's a whore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he wouldn't be the first one to say that.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. Just a couple left. And this one, we actually talked about this on, we talked about it off air, I guess, on Classic Hero, but episode 237, Poison for the Fairies, Gabrielle Vidrio says 5 minutes and 31 seconds. Finally, talk about the movie.
I think that's pretty good for a podcast. I've listened to podcasts where there's a damn hour of people talking about crap before they finally get to the subject.
Unless they're one of these people that wants the review to be done in 5 minutes. You know?
Yeah, well,
Go find somebody else that's listening.
It ain't me,
covering
babe.
Poison for the Fairies.
Yeah,
that ain't us. Yeah. So I do appreciate it, and thanks for the timing. And I don't even know what all these emojis are here. I see crossed swords. Other than that, and maybe
looks like a microphone. Somebody holding a microphone.
Alien in a dinner jacket. I don't know what
Holy
that
cow.
is.
Hey, let's put it this way. If Crystal had been here today, it would have been
A witch.
15 minutes before we started talking about Luther the Geek, because I would just listen to her talk about anything than Luther the Geek.
All right. Appreciate it. And finally, episode 235, Monkey Shines.
Oh, not
Lone
Jerry.
Wolf.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we'll go back to Chad again. Chad's the Lone Wolf.
Lone Wolf says, "I remember Kate McNeil from the 80s slasher movie House on Sorority Row. It was basically a sleazier version of Black Christmas with the plot of prom night. Pretty average slasher film with a good ending. So I was surprised to see her in this film with blonde hair, and way more surprised to see her in that weird paraplegic love scene with Jason Beggy." Is it Beggy? Beggy?
Bidet, I think.
Begay! To go along with this podcast.
I don't know. I can't.
was
I don't
another egg.
remember. It might have been maybe. So only in horror can somebody utter the line, "It was like a sleazier version of Black Christmas with the plot of prom night," and it makes sense. You just
And
don't hear people
we know exactly
talking
what he's
about
talking about.
other movies.
That's probably how the producer sold it. You know, the writer guy, they went there and said,
Yeah.
they described it as like, make that film.
All righty. Well, that's it for feedback. Jerry Chandler and Lone Wolf were busy catching up, and we appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
VPs.
where's the rest of you? We have more than like a dozen downloads. You know, we have thousands of downloads. We've got a couple thousand. I know it's not a lot, but we got a couple thousand subscribers on YouTube. But come on, make comments.
Or if
Have
we're
you
not
seen these
covering the
movies?
movies that you want us to cover, give us some suggestions.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see if we can cover them for you. And we promise to try. I can't guarantee that we'll start talking about the movie 5 minutes after we start, but at least it'll be a good discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and our format is so loose
plus
that with
free
it's
eggs.
Yes.
That's right. How many other
You gotta
podcasts, start?
Chad,
with
what's your
one of the
output
people?
rate, Chad?
It all depends on my input.
Oh,
Of course.
You know.
So leave comments. You could send emails to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com. You can leave comments here on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel, or we have a pretty active Facebook group, Gruesome Magazine's HNR and DOH podcast Facebook group. You can also leave comments on the website, gruesomemagazine.com. We do every 2 weeks. We have a new episode. Blah, blah. Focusing on a film released between 1980 and 1989. Next up, we tackle one chosen by moi, but you could actually say it was chosen by, I forget who made the comment. I think it might have been Gregory Crosby, asking if we had done Alligator yet. Oh. And we're going, you know what? Yeah, this would be a good time to do it. So I'm picking Alligator.
Great Robert Forster.
That's true. That's true. All right. So catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the 1980s, as only decades of horror can do it. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night, folks.
Gruesome Magazine.